Have you ever heard of a tree that could feed the entire world? It sounds like something out of a dream, right? Well, according to the mythology of some indigenous peoples in South America, this wasn't just a dream. It was a reality created by the god Macunama. He was a creator deity, a powerful being who wanted to provide for all of his people. So, he grew a massive, multi-purpose tree. This wasn't just any tree. Its branches were laden with every kind of food imaginable. There were ripe bananas, juicy papayas, starchy plantains, and everything else needed to sustain life. It was a true paradise, a guaranteed place to get all of your nutritional needs. For a time, everyone was happy and well fed. They just had to go to the tree and take what they needed. But then, as stories often go, human nature intervened. Someone had an idea. They thought, this is great, but it's a bit inconvenient having everyone travel to this one single tree. What if we chopped it down? Then we could take all the food and distribute it far and wide. It would be much more efficient. On the surface, it might have sounded like a good plan, a way to make life even easier. So, with good intentions but a lack of foresight, they took their axes and began to chop. The work was hard, but eventually, with a tremendous crash, the world's food source came tumbling down. They gathered the fruits and vegetables, ready to start their new, more organized system of distribution. But they discovered something strange. The stump, the colossal base of where this magnificent tree once stood, wasn't dry. It was full of water. And not just any water, it was crystal clear, and schools of fish were merrily swimming around inside it, as if in a giant, natural aquarium. It was a beautiful and unexpected sight at first. It seemed like another gift, a new source of food to replace what was lost from the tree. However, there was a problem. The water wasn't staying contained within the stump. A small trickle began to seep out from a crack in the side. It was just a tiny stream at first. Nothing to worry about. But soon, that trickle grew stronger. It became a steady flow, then a gushing torrent. The water level started rising, threatening to spill over and flood the surrounding lands. The very act that was meant to simplify life had unleashed a catastrophe that threatened to destroy it. The world was on the brink of being submerged, and someone needed to fix it. That someone was Sigu. Sigu was a hero, a clever and resourceful figure who saw the impending disaster. The water pouring from the sacred life tree stump was no longer a gentle stream. It was a roaring deluge, threatening to cover the entire earth. While others panicked, Sigu knew he had to act fast. He was a problem solver, and he immediately went to work on his first plan. He was skilled in magic and craftsmanship, so he wove a large, enchanted basket. This wasn't an ordinary basket for carrying fruit. It was designed with powerful magic to contain the flow, to act as a plug for the stump and stop the flood at its source. He worked tirelessly, weaving reeds and chanting spells, creating a vessel strong enough to hold back the ocean. He carried it to the gushing stump and managed to wedge it into place. For a moment, it worked. The torrent slowed to a trickle, and it seemed disaster was averted. But chaos, it seems, always finds a way. As Sigu was securing his magical basket, a curious monkey, chattering and mischievous, came along. It had been watching from the trees, intrigued by all the commotion. It saw the strange new object wedged in the stump and, not understanding its purpose, decided to investigate. The monkey scurried down, poked at the basket, tugged on it, and with one final fateful pull, knocked it out of place. The pressure that had been building up behind it was released in a cataclysmic burst. The water exploded outwards with even greater force than before. Plan A was a complete and utter failure, thanks to a nosy primate. The floodwaters were now rising faster than ever, and Sigu realized a simple plug wouldn't be enough. He needed a plan B. His new plan was far more ambitious and drastic. If he couldn't stop the water, he would have to save the world's inhabitants from it. Sigu began rounding up all the animals. He called the jaguars from the forest, the capybaras from the riverbanks, the monkeys from the canopy, and every other creature. 2 by 2, he led this incredible procession to a huge, dry cave high up in the mountains, a place safe from the rising tide. Once every animal was safely inside, Sigu needed a way to seal the entrance, to make it completely waterproof. He used a massive amount of wax, melting it down and plastering it over the entrance, creating a perfect airtight seal. The animals were now safe, sheltered from the coming storm. But what about Sigu himself? He couldn't stay in the cave, he had to keep watch. So he found the tallest tree in the land, one whose peak he hoped would remain above the water, and he shinned up its trunk, climbing higher and higher until he reached the very top. There, he settled in to await developments, a lonely sentinel watching as the world drowned below him. The floodwaters rose and rose, just as Sigu had feared. They covered the forests, the plains, and the mountains. Soon, the entire earth was a vast, silent ocean, with nothing visible but the surface of the water and the very top of Sig's tree. Up there, perched on his lonely branch, Sigu was incredibly bored. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. All he could do was watch the endless expanse of water and wait. He had brought some nuts with him to eat, and to pass the time, he developed a little routine. Every so often, he would take one of the nuts and drop it over the side. He would listen intently. For a long time, all he heard was a faint plop as the nut hit the water far below. Each plop was a sign that the flood was still at its peak, and with each one, he sighed, his boredom and loneliness growing. It was a monotonous existence, waiting for a world to be reborn. He repeated this process over and over. Drop a nut, listen, plop, sigh, drop another, plop, sigh. This was his life now. The sun rose and set on his watery world, and the only sound was the wind and the gentle lapping of waves against his treetop island. He wondered about the animals locked away in their cave. He wondered if the water would ever go down. He missed the sounds of the forest, the smell of the earth after rain, the feeling of solid ground beneath his feet. He was the sole witness to a drowned world, a lonely guardian waiting for a sign, but he never lost hope. He knew that the world was cyclical, that destruction is often followed by creation, and that his vigil would eventually come to an end. All he could do was wait, and drop his nuts, listening for a different sound. Then, one day, something different happened. Sigu took a nut, held it over the edge, and let it fall. He listened, expecting the familiar plop, but this time, he heard a new sound. Thud. It was a solid, earthy sound. He dropped another, just to be sure. Thud. The nuts were no longer hitting water. They were hitting land. A wide grin spread across Sig's face. The waters had finally subsided. His long, boring vigil was over. It was time to get back to work. He scrambled down the tree, his feet finally touching soft, damp earth. The world was muddy and bare, but it was land. He made his way back to the mountain where the cave was sealed. He broke the wax seal, and a wave of sound and life burst forth as the animals, cramped but safe, came blinking into the sunlight. The air was once again filled with the roars, squawks, and chatters of the animal kingdom. With the creatures released to repopulate the world, Sig's final task began. It was time to rebuild, to plant new trees, and to start the world anew, hopefully having learned a valuable lesson about the consequences of chopping down a magic tree. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this journey into mythology, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next story.